But while they are revolving around the sun, the whole solar system is moving away from other solar systems. Okay? Why are they moving away from the other solar systems? Because the intermediate gravitational forces between them is not strong enough to overcome what? The bang, the explosion that happened at first. So you have an explosion, so particles are moving away from each other. In the outer space, there is nothing, there's vacuum. So there's no resistance for this action, for this expansion. Okay? The only resistance is the gravitational forces produced by each and every body of those. Let's say this one and this is 2. So M1 and M2 are exerting gravitational forces on each other. They are holding each other close to a certain range. But at the same moment, between M1 and M3 over here, okay, the distance is bigger than to be overcome by the gravitational forces. So they will move away from one another because of the explosion. When did the scientists discover this fact, that actually the galaxies and the solar systems are moving away from one another? Do you know?
Hubble Space Telescope.
Yes, this is the Hubble Space Telescope was named after a scientist. The scientist's name is Edwin Hubble. Edwin Hubble discovered this fact back in 1925. This is less than 100 years ago. Okay, so in 1925, Edwin Hubble discovered that. Discovered that the whole universe is expanding, and the distances between the galaxies are in continuous increase. Okay? So, let's now try to take a look at some of the Quranic verses and see whether they confirm these facts or not, or they're against them. Okay? So, take a look at verse number 21 from Surah Al-Anbiya, for instance. You will find that it's the one in the middle of the first page. The third verse on the first page. Okay? You'll find that Allah is saying, أَوَلَمْ يَرَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا. Okay? So, haven't the disbelievers seen yet that the earth and the surrounding universe, the samawat, by the way, the word the samawat in the Quran, it is not referring to the blue color we see.
The cosmos.
We see a lot in the morning, or the black color at night. No, it is referring to the surrounding universe. Okay? So the word samawat, whenever you see samawat related to earth in the Quran, you have to understand that Allah is speaking about the universe, the surrounding planets, stars, and everything. Okay? So Allah is saying that as-samawati wal-ard kanata ratqan fafataqnahuma. Haven't the disbelievers seen yet that the earth and the surrounding universe were all combined together, and then we ruptured them? Okay? And then he goes on to say, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And verily we have created from water all living things, all living organisms. Okay? So, do you think that this verse is contradicting the Big Bang theory, or is it actually, let's simply say it's not against it? It's not against it. Of course it's not. And by the way, this challenge is not for the believers, it's for the disbelievers. So isn't this a bit, it drives you to think, why is Allah challenging the disbelievers inside the Quran? They don't believe in it. So it's as if Allah already knew that Muslims won't be the ones to make those scientific discoveries. Does this make any sense?
Or that the Muslims will have more taslim. And this will not be the matters for them to decide if this revelation is really true and it's from Allah or not.
It could be, and it could be also that with time, people won't understand the miracle of the Quran, they won't understand the linguistic miracle inside the Quran. So they will need more proofs, because this is an everlasting miracle. So how am I supposed in the future to prove to them that the Quran is the true word of the creator of the universe?
But the way it is addressed to the
disbelievers, mainly the disbelievers, exactly. So this also proves that Allah knew from the very beginning that with time we will need some kind of, not solid scientific wording inside the Quran, but scientific hints. Let's put it like this. These are just scientific hints. The companions of Prophet Muhammad, they didn't care how the creation of the universe originated. They didn't care about this. It was something that didn't catch their interest. What they were interested in are the laws that weren't present during their time. How can we create the most perfect community? How can we abide by the Creator's laws and stuff like this? But how the universe was created at the beginning, no one ever asked about this during Prophet Muhammad's reign. Okay. So, and this could be why Allah is addressing the disbelievers here. Okay.
Nor the disbelievers also in that time, right?
I'm sorry?
Back then, also the disbelievers back then did not ask about it.
Of course, it was something beyond their understanding during that time. No one heard of logic of these issues except like 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago actually. Okay. Then next, Allah says in Surah Al-Dhariyat, next verse, وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. And verily we have constructed the universe with might.
Which verse, please?
The second one, Al-Dhariyat 47. It's the fourth verse on the first page. Okay. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. So verily we have constructed the universe with might, and we are expanding it. And take a look at the tense, لَمُوسِعُونَ. It's continuous. It's not أوسعناها, it's موسعون. We are still expanding it. This also doesn't negate what the Big Bang Theory is saying. It doesn't negate it. Actually, it kind of coincides with it. It goes along with it. Yes, the universe is expanding, and this is what Allah says, that He is still expanding it. Okay? If you move on to the next verse, you will find that Allah says, ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان فقال لها وللأرض ائتيا طوعا أو كرها قالتا أتينا طائعين. Some scientists place very important, intelligent questions about the Big Bang Theory, like for instance, after the explosion occurred in the singularity point at the very beginning, okay, was it just random organization of the dust particles that produced those magnificent galaxies we see by telescopes? Was it random? Or was it governed and there was some kind of intelligent creator behind it? This question is asked every day in all universities all over the world. I learned from Dr. Said, some of you came from England, right? So you'll find this asked in Cambridge, Oxford, and all of the British universities, etc., everything. And amazingly, if you watch a movie on the internet that's called Expelled by Ben Stein. Ben Stein is a Jewish-American scientist. Okay, this is very important. Just try to remember this name, Ben Stein. I'll write it down for you. I think it's Stein is written like this. I think so. Okay, there's a movie called Expelled. In this movie, Ben Stein is trying to discuss the idea that behind the existence of the universe, there is an intelligent, knowledgeable creator. Many scientists in the West, they say this. They say that this universe couldn't have been produced by random attraction forces. It's governed. The laws we discover every day prove this. There is a lot of laws. There are like tens of thousands of laws which we have discovered in physics books that prove that this is not some kind of random organization. No, it was governed. Okay? And also, the second law of thermodynamics proves the same thing. Because the second law of thermodynamics, it states that the entropy of any isolated system tends to increase with time. So if we say that time was enough for the bodies to attract each other by, according to the masses and according to the volume, and this produced the planets and then produced galaxies, and after this, the whole universe we see around us, then the question will remain, doesn't this negate the second law of thermodynamics? How come? Because entropy is the tendency of any system to incline towards disorder. Okay? It's the tendency of any system to incline towards what? Disorder, not order. But the universe around us inclined it towards what? No, towards order. It's organized. We can calculate everything inside the universe. The distance to stars, we can create the distance to stars. We can create the attraction forces between the different bodies. We can, if we see that some kind of weird body is suddenly emerging inside our solar system, we can calculate at which time it's going to pass by our Earth.
But in some systems, isn't it true that some entities create order in order to create more disorder? like for example snowflakes, that perfect geometric shape is not used so that sun particles or sunlight, sun rays can move around in all different directions. So order can be created in certain systems.
Yes, yeah, it can be, but at the end of the day, when I'm speaking about the Big Bang Theory, this one, an explosion occurred, produced dust particles and gas, and because of the explosion they are moving away from each other, randomly, not in an organized manner. But then all of a sudden, galaxies started to emerge, the attraction forces occurred between the different particles, and everything became organized. Like for instance, if you calculate the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and between the Earth and the Moon, and you try to think about this, some scientists make calculations. If we move away from the Sun by 1 kilometer and closer to the Moon by this 1 kilometer, what's going to happen? Life won't exist on Earth. Do you know this? Life won't exist on Earth. The tidal system is going to change, the temperatures are going to change, the Earth is going to be frozen, everything is going to be different. So, the exact location of the Earth, some people might think it could never be by coincidence, could never have occurred by coincidence. So this is order. We're speaking about this is order. This is not some kind of,
I think the Big Bang Theory is talking about the how, not the who. And this is the biggest
Yes, I know. And I'll first explain the how, and then I'm trying to compare it to the Quran, because some people might tell you science have already proven that we don't need a creator. Everything could have happened on its own. We don't need a creator. So, as a Muslim, how are you going to respond to this? Are you going to deny the Big Bang Theory as a whole? Or are you going to tell them, yes, the Big Bang Theory actually, according to my understanding, according to the Quranic verses, could have happened, but it was governed. It was not random. But in other words, this is the means which Allah used in creating the universe. It was not like some people think that Allah is a perfect man sitting above a throne above the skies and he's making things with his hands. No, this is a very, very childish idea. This is not Allah, this is not what the Quran is saying about him. Okay? So, by the way, I'm not trying to prove the correctness of the Big Bang Theory. As an engineer, I believe that it happened. Yes, I 100% I believe that Big Bang Theory happened as an engineer, but at the end of the day, I'm not trying to prove that the Quran is saying that it did. I'm just trying to figure out whether the Quran is against it or not. That's it. Okay? So, again, back to the second law of thermodynamics. The entropy or the inclination of any system towards disorder with time would never produce an organized universe. But the universe is a bit organized. Not actually a bit, it's extremely organized. If you think about it, if you study the laws, then cover the movements of planets and everything, you'll find that it is organized. Okay? So let's move on to this. We need to discuss this verse first. ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان. Then Allah equally created unto the firmament or the universe when it was still smoke. Okay? And said to this smoke, he ordered the smoke, come willingly or unwillingly, and so the smoke responded to the order of Allah. We come willingly or unwillingly. Okay? What exactly is this smoke?
The dust particles.
Exactly. Have you seen a picture of these dust particles before? Have you ever seen it? I'm going to show it to you from Spitzer telescope. This is the Orion Nebula. It is the closest massive star production factory to Earth. It is always placed under complete surveillance by NASA, and they produce pictures for it on their site all the time for what's happening over there. So I'm going to show you a picture so that you can imagine how the Quran was precise in describing the creation of the universe. Okay. This is a picture from NASA Spitzer telescope. Can you see it? I'm going to move the book so that you can move take a look. Okay. So this is the closest star manufacturing, factory to Earth. This is an explosion, and you can see this celestial dust cloud. How can you describe this cloud, by the way? If you just see this picture, what are you going to say about this? What is it? It looks like smoke. Yes, it looks like smoke. Whether inside this smoke there is dust or not, I don't know, but when I see it for the first time, this looks like smoke. It's a fire and smoke. Okay. You can find this picture on NASA's website. Just try the Orion Nebula, and you're going to find it. So this is an explosion, and the celestial dust cloud, or the scientists called it the celestial dust cloud. Allah referred to it in the Quran as smoke. You can see this is smoke. Anyone who takes the first look at it, he will say that this is an explosion and smoke around it. That's it. Okay. So again, do you think that the Quranic verses are against the Big Bang or not? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. What happened after that? Okay, we have our solar system. Everything is now perfectly organized inside it. We are revolving around the sun. We are using its energy and the light coming from it and the warmth all the time to exist. If by any means we move a bit far away from the sun, we will lose everything. Okay, so how did life emerge on Earth?
Excuse me, there is a verse maybe suitable for the first يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما بدأنا أول خلق نعيده وعلى ذلك the certain point after spending certain point the universe will retain the first point.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And this is also what the Big Bang Theory states, that at the end the whole universe is going to be combined back again into one singularity point, and this whole process is going to be reversed. And this is also mentioned inside the Quran. Allah is telling us that this will happen in the far future. When, we don't know. Maybe 10,000 years from now, I don't know when exactly. Okay? So after we have our solar, after the solar system was produced, how did life emerge on Earth? It was just a huge pile of rocks and dust, and that's it. Now we're going to move to what? The evolution theory. Yeah. So you'll find in the Quran a very important verse. It says in Surah Al-Ankabut, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقَ. So Allah is actually ordering us. It's not an option. Roam around in the earth and try to figure out how did the creation start? How did life start? It's an order. Okay? Do you know any Muslim scientist who has done that? Who has actually roamed around in the earth trying to figure out how did life start? No, unfortunately.
But for example, Najjar has written quite a lot of research on the geological side of the creation of Earth, but not how life started.
But he was not pioneering this.
No.
Yeah. So, who was the first human being who ever did that? Roamed around in the earth trying to figure out how did life start?
Darwin.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And he was a brilliant. He was brilliant. Darwin was one of the best scientists who lived on Earth. Forget about the idea that he's an atheist. He was not an atheist, and he himself said that in his autobiography. When his niece Nora Barlow asked him, "Are you an atheist?" He said, "I believe in the evolution. Okay, but I also believe that it didn't happen on its own." If you want the exact words of what he said, you can tell it. It's quite. You can find it on his Wikipedia page, by the way.
Wikipedia is not an authentic website to reference.
Yes, but it's just referring to his autobiography, and you'll find it in the references. Yeah, and you can download, I think, the autobiography of Darwin on YouTube.
But you don't quote Wikipedia, but you go to the source.
Yeah, go to the Wikipedia source. Yeah.
It's good for a reference page.
Yes, I think.
Okay, this is what he said. Reason tells me of the extreme difficulty, or rather impossibility, of conceiving this immense and wonderful universe, including man with his capability of looking far into futurity, as the result of blind chance. Okay? And then he moved on to say, when thus reflecting, I feel compelled to look at the first cause having an intelligent mind, in some degree analogous to that of man. Okay? And I deserve to be called theist. This is what Darwin himself said. So no one can now, from the atheists, come and tell, oh, Darwin has already proved through the evolution theory that we don't need a creator. No, Darwin himself actually negates what you're saying. So, one of my sheikhs, he used to teach here, may Allah bless his soul, his name was Idris Tawfi. Okay? He was a former priest in the Vatican. He was British, by the way, he was not Egyptian. He changed his name after embracing Islam to Idris Tawfi, and he was once lecturing us, and he told us that he doesn't believe in atheism. He doesn't believe that a person can tell you, I'm 100% atheist. He could be an agnostic. He has his doubts. He can say, I don't know whether God exists or not. But he cannot tell you, I'm sure 100% that God does not exist. Because in this case, I'm going to ask him, what's your proof that God does not exist? If he tells you it's the evolution theory, you're going to tell him the one who invented the evolution theory itself was theist. He was not an atheist. So, when I think about it, when I remember his words, he was correct. There's nothing so-called pure atheism. It couldn't happen. No one could be 100% sure that God does not exist. He can have his doubts. That's okay. And the Quran actually grants him this right. You can have your doubts. And this is why Allah is continuously challenging them. Continuously inviting them to think. The Quran never demands faith. It just tries to give you some challenging ideas about the existence of the Creator. Try to think about it, try to reflect on so and so. But the verses never say, you have to believe. You will never find this inside the Quran.
But what about the story of Sayyidina Adam?
What about it?
He says that he was made as a man.
Yeah, he was a man.
Nizil fil ard, as a man.
What do you mean by nizil fil ard? Descended upon the earth, what do you mean by that?
When he was in paradise.
Where is paradise? Does the Quran tell you where is paradise? Exactly. So, forget about the Bible, because the Bible is not our book. Okay? The stories, the childish stories that you'll find inside here, they will drive you crazy. That Eve was created from Adam's crooked rib, and then he was inside heaven's paradise, and then he was brought down to earth. All of this is not mentioned anywhere inside the Quran. Actually, the Quran states the opposite of that. Allah says in the Quran, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I'm going to instate a vicegerent on earth. فِي الْأَرْض, not in heaven, not in paradise. Not in the heavenly paradise, no, in earth. And he didn't say, I'm going to create Khalifa, no. He said, I'm going to instate. This means that there were already creatures on earth. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ, not إِنِّي خَالِدٌ. Yeah.
What about تدخل منها جميعا?
Yes, exactly. From where? From something high inside the earth, on earth, or from heaven? We just think this way because we were raised upon the stories inherited from the previous nations. But this is never mentioned inside the Quran. Even Sheikh Sha'rawi himself, he said that. We don't know whether this paradise was on earth, or like the previous nations told us, that it was the heavenly paradise. We don't know that.
And the Ard is, we don't know whether it's this form of land, the earth, the actual earth that we're on, or there was another earth. Is it the same situation as in the...
No, according to my understanding and my belief, that when Allah is speaking about Ard, He's speaking about the earth, the planet on which we live. Because this is the meaning that coincides with all of the verses inside the Quran. If you try to use a different meaning, at some places you will find that it's not coherent with what is said.